I speak with legendary real estate photographer and videographer Ken Dono, also known on YouTube as the original Dobo. Today, on episode 20 of Real Estate Photography Unlocked.
I'm just trying to get mine, but these agents got me losing my mind. Whatever happened to the good times? Man, forget about it. It's showtime. Let me show you how to get some rest, how to make millions, how to be your best. This is shout out to the REPs, to the shooters, producers, and the newbies. Welcome to our podcast. I'm your rep MC. We're here every week talking real estate photography.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Estate Photography Unlocked. It's vacant, go whenever. Today's episode, we have a very special guest that you may recognize from the Facebook groups. He contributes a lot and has a lot of great things to say, and I'm very happy to have him here for episode 20 of Real Estate Photography Unlocked. Without further ado, welcome, Ken Dono. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. I really appreciate you agreeing to this because I don't always contribute a lot in the Facebook groups, but I am a big lurker. And lots of times when someone asks me a question and I'm tempted to answer, I see that you've already answered and you've answered it well. So
I mean, I try to fit in or fill in where I can or where we have time. But I'm usually I probably shouldn't admit this. A lot of time it's when I'm driving to the next appointment. I'll hop on and scan things. I'm like, oh, let me reply to this.
I thought you were going to say when you're on the toilet, but
no. But I do make good use of that time as well. So there is no blank spots in the day.
Exactly, man. That's some of the most productive time, frankly.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about you and your business. How long have you been doing this? Where are you located? Just to establish an idea of who you are if people don't know who you are.
Yeah, so online, I'm known as Original Dobo. My claim to fame actually started on YouTube before real estate is what it is now. I've been doing this since 2017. My business I started the business, I want to say it was like late 2018. I actually formulated my real estate business. And initially it all started, like I said, I started on YouTube and I started doing drones. And, I think as many people do when they buy a drone, they're trying to figure out, well, how can I monetize this? How can I make money? And I think the lowest hanging fruit at the time was real estate. So I was like, I have a drone. I'm going to pitch this to agents that I have a drone and I'm going to do drone only photography for real estate because I thought it was super easy.
Right.
Well, nobody cared because the reality is agents wanted a one-stop shop that somebody's going to do drone photography and photos interior. And this is like when drones were still, I say it's 2018, 2019, drones were still relatively new to real estate. Like it wasn't really being used as widely as it is now, or it wasn't expected. So I had to retool my business and go back to the drawing board of how am I going to do this? How am I going to market myself? I didn't have any shot. And I was in a Facebook group. An agent needed somebody to do video and photo. And I said, well, I'll do it for you pro bono. And people nowadays, you say that, they're like, oh, no, don't do that. And the first video I ever did was horrendous. I didn't know it was horrendous because when you're so close to the fire, you just don't see how bad it is.
Right.
And it was bad. I still watch that video today and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was hard. This was horrible. But that's how I got my start. They gave me an opportunity. They loved it. And then once I started working with them, it was like dirt. It was dirt cheap. And I still had a full-time job. I was working 40 to 50 hours a week. I was a software engineer.
Oh, really?
I was a software engineer for a point of sale company that did automotive software. Before that, previous in my life, I was a mechanic. I actually ran Midas stores and wrenched. So, I mean, I'm, I guess, technically savvy and then also understand how to put things together. So that was my life. And then I became a corporate trainer with this company. So I was doing real estate part-time, really part-time. And then I would travel like once a month I was traveling. So then I became unavailable completely to my clients. And I think it was like the COVID era, all of a sudden things like really started popping off in real estate, started getting busier. And to the point where I was like contemplating, I'm like, man, I could do this full time. I'm not really sure. And I remember it. I was at an event for YouTube. I was up in New Hampshire, came back, or was it New Hampshire? No, it was Rhode Island. Went to Rhode Island, missed my flight. I had to drive home. And during that drive home, I was just getting beat down by my corporate job. And I was like, you know what? I don't need this shit. I'm like, I don't need this shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I decided right then and there, the next incident, I was done with the company. It was like 2 days later, they were trying to stiff me with some like shops in Hawaii or something. And it was crazy because I would have to work till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I was like, you know what? I don't need this. I just remember emailing my boss. I closed my laptop, emailed my boss. I said, send me a UPS label so I can send you this laptop. I'm not coming in tomorrow, the next day, or ever again. I'm 100% completely done with this. And it was like, that was the turning point. That was 2021. And I've been doing this full time ever since, and haven't looked back.
Man, congratulations.
I haven't looked back. So
And
it's been a change.
A lot of people may be hearing this podcast, and we have all sorts of people who have been doing this for years and are just enjoying good entertainment. Other people who watch this channel and this podcast because they're really wanting to get into real estate photography. One of the big questions they're going to ask or wondering from that story is real estate photography really that good of an opportunity over being a software engineer, over working for corporate, over running Midas stores? Real estate photography out of all of that was the best for you, and why?
I mean, at the moment, I didn't realize it. Like, this is not what I woke up. When I was a kid, I didn't like sit there and aspire to, you know what, I'm going to be a real estate photographer. That's not what anybody ever aspires to be. But then, you know, there's a poetic side of this that is sort of odd. So, you know, going into this, we've always wanted to buy a house. We always wanted to buy a house. Never could buy a house because I've always ended up being like an entrepreneur, and just things never lined up for us to do so. So I found great joy in watching others sell and buy and doing the whole real estate transaction side of things. And then I found like there's like an artistic side of some homes, not all. Sometimes it's very utilitarian. You're just going through the process of punching out a shoot. But then there was like this artistic side where I got to be a little bit creative and fun with things. And, you know, watching the work that you do help somebody else sell something, and then seeing that joy when the house sells or somebody buys, or, you know, you're watching these agents make a living off of the marketing that you're assisting them with. There was something almost addicting to it. And it became fun. It became, you know, you realize like when you have a job, you say, hey, I have a job. That doesn't sound as fun as when you say you have a career. And then my old boss long time ago, he said, if you ever stop having fun with what you do, stop doing it. Well, so far I've never woke up one day and said, I'm not having fun. Yeah, there's days where we hate what we do. Like, oh my gosh, this is stressful. This is crazy. But those are just navigational changes. But I've never once woke up and said, you know what, this isn't for me. This isn't fun. It's always fun because you're always getting a new canvas. And that, I think, is the most alluring thing about this industry is that it's just new all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's also always presents as new challenges, not just from house to house, but day to day. You can have new challenges, whether it's, wow, how am I going to handle all this demand? Versus some days you're going to have, why am I not booked today? Let me look at marketing and see if I can solve that issue. So you're always dealing with different challenges, whether it also be taxes, as fun or not fun. That is, it is, you know, something that you can always face. But
it's just another challenge. I mean, there's obviously you know, being a business owner and doing this on your own, there's obviously some not so glamorous things that many don't probably consider. You know, administrative things that you just don't think about, you know, and then, you know, of course, every year in April, you got to be like, oh, wait, I have to pay taxes. I've got to do this. I've got, you know, so there's obviously some things that can make it more stressful, but for the vast majority of the year, it can be absolute bliss. And the fact that you can say no, like you can tell people no, and that's a complete sentence, and that's totally fine. And that's a decision you get to make. And the best part of all this is you hold your own cards throughout the whole thing. And I think that is the most unique aspect of this is you can just say no, you can walk away. I mean, really, there is so many verticals with real estate that I don't think a lot of other companies have. And it's only gotten better, you know, in the past, I want to say 2-3 years. I mean, we've seen a very unique twist to this industry that 5 years ago, didn't exist, right? Social media has completely revolutionized this industry to now, it's like everybody wants it. Everybody craves, this attention, and it's created almost a new agent and just a new vibe for this industry as a whole, which I think is really wild to see.
And I want to talk about that big time with you, because video in production is really big right now and is something you do really well. In fact, I saw someone make a Facebook poll about, hey guys, who do you think is the best videographer? And several people rated you the best videographer in the industry. So congratulations. I'm not sure if you saw that poll or not.
No, I did not see that poll, but that's definitely flattering to hear. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that are just, I look up to. They're amazing in the industry. But, and I always encourage everybody just to be the best with, for themselves, not to emulate what others do. So, but it's hard now with the way everything is, because I feel like everybody's stuff just looks so similar, which is so wild.
Yeah. And I actually want to talk to you several things about video. I want to talk to you about, hey, when should we do our absolute best and go all out?
Yeah.
And when should we tailor the video to the price that the real estate agent is willing to pay?
Sure.
When should we follow the trends versus be original? All of those are things I want to talk about. But first, before we get to those, how did you get started? How did you handle the transition from working full-time to doing this, making sure your bills are paid? What are some of the best way you found to get clients? I know that some people don't like to hear this, but like I said, the majority of the people who listen to this are growing or they're new.
Sure.
So I really want to give them something, and then we will go into
absolutely. So the first things first, you got to get client number one, right? No matter how you get them, or whether you do something for free with the expectation that, hey, the next one they're going to pay, whatever you have to do to build a portfolio, you have to do. Something I wish I would have did sooner, at least on the photo side, is I wish I didn't try to do everything. A lot of courses and people try to train you to show you how to edit. It's stupid to do that. You can't compete with AI now editing photos, and you certainly can't compete with overseas editors. If I can tell anybody anything that's going into this, is to understand your composition and get an editor for photos to take that burden off of you, because just doing that will give you the perception that you've been doing this for a long time, and it allows you to build a portfolio faster and quicker. Another thing that I would suggest to anybody is to reach out to existing industry professionals in your area and offer to collaborate, whether it be at a reduced rate, not telling you to work for free, but in the exchange that you can build your portfolio. Not that you're trying to poach their clients or you're trying to tread on their toes, but to try to find a collaborative median to be able to do this. Because yes, you could work for yourself, but you could also work for somebody that's established and gain and garner the same experience. So if you decide you want to go out on your own, eventually you can do so. But that would be my biggest recommendation. These are things I wish I would have did. And actually I did do. I had friends up in New Jersey that they saw me trying, they saw me working a full-time job. They saw me struggling, trying to edit and do all the things, and I just couldn't do it. And I finally said, I'm like, dude, how are you editing these photos? He's like, bro, we got an overseas editor. I send them the files, I pay this. And I was so hell-bent on the cost. I was like, I don't know if I want to spend, 50, 70 cents a file at the time to do this. Then I decided, let me try it. And then what I realized was, okay, I need to figure out how to back end this into my price to make it advantageous. And I started looking around at what my competitors were charging. And then I realized, wait a second, all of my competitors are doing the same thing. Why am I not doing anything different? The only difference is I need to find editors that they are not using and tweak my style a little bit to make it borrow the best of what I can do and do something a little different. So once I started doing that, we started getting very busy and started getting more clients. When I decided to go full-time, it was because, number one, I was saving money. I was putting money off to the side that the money that I was making from the real estate side. I never took that money and just lived high on the hog. You know what I mean? I just put it off to the side, put it into my business account, and just kept building it. I was calling this my investment fund. And when I deemed it appropriate, I would purchase new gear to try to level up, what I was doing on the business. Like if I needed it, or I felt like it could, if I can get ROI back on whatever gear I was purchasing, I would buy new gear. But I didn't just buy things to try to ask what others were doing. There was no groups then. I wasn't in a photography group. I didn't have really anybody other than 2 friends in New Jersey that I could really talk to about this. So I was like sort of figuring out and just doing what was best. And everybody's situation will be different depending on what their finances are. Do you want to put stuff on a credit card? I was always under this assessment that I wanted to own all of my equipment outright. I didn't want to have to owe anything to anybody. So whatever I bought in steps. I treated it as a ladder and just kept leveling up my gear. When I first started shooting, I was using like a used Sony A6300 was what I was using. So it was a very cheap, inexpensive camera. I think it was used. I think I bought it off of Adorama used. And I used that for probably about a year and then leveled up again. I think I bought like another APS-C camera before I finally moved over to full frame. So what I could recommend to anybody is use a ladder approach and use what you have or what you can, and don't worry about what others have. Just try to be the best you can with what you have. It's going to build you a good foundation, but to really have a good financial hold, because then if you decide to do this and let's say it doesn't work out, you can go back. Also, heavy recommendation is not to just quit a job like I did. Obviously, I have YouTube and everything else that I could have fell back on if this didn't work. I would have been perfectly fine no matter what, but that's not going to be for everybody. So I don't recommend doing that either. But when you are drowning and you feel like you are going to lose clients because you just cannot service them, then that's when it's time to jump.
Yeah, absolutely. And in case you guys haven't heard before, one thing they like to go by is the 60 to 80% rule.
Yeah.
Ideally, look at your calendar and quantify how much time you have available in a day and in a week, right? And once you start getting close to that 80% booked, you need to start figuring out how to delegate or scale your business up. So if you're outsourcing your images, first of all, you should do that from the very beginning.
Yeah, you should just do that from the jump.
And
like,
I always encourage
tutorials and guides would say that. Like no one does. Like, I was like, like I would go and like look at Nathan Cool and I would watch this. I'm like, I started thinking to myself, like, how are you everywhere and have a life plus do video? Like the math wasn't mathing when I first started doing this. I'm like, how are these people doing this? And that goes for anybody that's successful at some point. You're going to reach that point where you're like, okay, I have to scale. I have to start outsourcing. I can't do it all on my own. It's not something obviously we broadcast to our clients. As far as our clients knows, we have magic elves.
Yeah. And let me agree with you there, guys. We get in a bad habit of oversharing as professionals. Like this isn't exactly a regulated or professional industry or established industry even. And I find a lot of people are oversharing to their clients about what the kind of stuff we do and how we do it. Clients are on a need to know basis. Okay, this goes for the way we operate business, and it also goes for your personal stuff. So if you guys are having something going on in your personal life, your business network is not going to be the people you go to fall on. Yeah. I'm just experiencing. Speaking from experience here, oftentimes if you share something personal that's going on with the intent of looking for support, it's actually going to cost you business because people are just going to see that as like, he might not be as reliable in the incoming future. Is that right? No. So in the ideal world, people will come around you and be there to support you. In the real world, people say, there's a life event happening with him or her, and I don't want any of my closings being delayed or my listings being delayed. So I'm going to switch up my photographer until this gets, settled down, and then they never come back. So that's I've seen that many times I got robbed one time and shared it, and I had a kid, which is a great, joyful thing, and I had already scaled my business with employees, so it wasn't going to affect me, but the perception was there, and it cost me business.
Right.
So don't do those personal things, but also don't do the things like, hey, I outsource all my stuff. That can actually lose you a lot of credibility.
Yeah, it makes it seem like Like, and then the expectation is when you do that, that they're just going to ask you because it's not going to affect you, even though you still have to do all the communication between you and the editor. You still have a lot of legwork that you have to do that they don't realize. Like, these images don't always come back 100%. Like, I'll spend time in the morning just, culling through images and making my final tweaks and Photoshop adjustments and whatever. There's still a fair share of things that we have to do.
Yeah,
that,
a lot.
People don't see, they don't understand. And it's honestly, it's not even worth the conversation to explain that to a client. But again, it's just like I tell people all the time, no, just you never say that. You never say that. You have magic elves as far as anybody's concerned, is what I tell people.
And the big thing that I've been seeing lately is a lot of people will say, don't be paranoid. Don't be, negative thinking. That'll never happen. Well, I've seen it happen a lot lately where we share that we outsource, and then real estate agents start thinking, you can outsource this.
Well, and the problem that it creates now is that in markets, certain markets that are not quite emerging or not flourishing or getting slower, these agents get slower, and they're like, well, wait a second, I can just send this out to Box Brownie or whatever. I have a client. She uses me. She actually will send my images out for retouching, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. You want to send it out. You want to have grass enhance and all this other wonderful things that I'm just not going to do because we're not getting paid to do that. That's perfectly fine. But the fact that she even knows that those types of things exist tells me that they, agents do understand it. Like, I have agents that will do their own virtual staging.
Yeah,
I have agents that will do their own Picasso term.
Very common. Yeah.
So
and I don't like that, because as AI continues to get better, we're also getting these photos to video stuff. I'm seeing and then we're going to have a huge issue, because there's a lot of people who have just been saying over and over and over and over and over again, hey, don't worry about the licensing to your images. Don't worry about the licensing to your images.
No, I do worry about it, because we're training, essentially when you're giving these things up, you're training your replacement possibly. Now, granted, we still have to capture, and good agents, in my book, good agents will always just focus on the things that they're good at, which is selling and doing that. But what that will start to do, AI eventually will start devaluing our service to where it's going to force us to be competing with an autonomous machine that it does not exist in the real world. So then you become a slave for that. Now, I do believe in embracing AI to certain aspects, but I don't think it will ever essentially replace. And I think as real estate goes, eventually what will end up happening to protect clients and customers and buyers and even sellers, that they're going to regulate the use of AI in real estate. They're going to have to, because otherwise a buyer won't know what the reality of anything is, or images will start getting flagged on MLS as AI generated or AI enhanced. So
yeah, I'm not sure if that will happen myself personally. Like, certainly possibility. I just think that actually regulating that and putting it into litigation in the proper wording is going to be tough, because then the question is going to have to be asked, well, what is real? Because, if we want to get down to it, we should have a standardized camera that everybody has to use with the same focal length, so that everybody sees exactly the same thing in every house.
This is true. I mean, certain MLSs are already taking action against AI with, and again, it's a state by state, sometimes county by county, district by district, that they take these protective measures. But all it's going to take is one large enough lawsuit, like what we saw with the National Association of Realtors, for things to change again. And we're starting to see rules and stuff clamping down on even social media with agents. So, I mean, we're still in the juvenile stages, but what I can suggest to anybody that's just coming into this industry is ride the wave high right now, but prepare for slack tide. That's all I can tell you, is prepare for there to be a monumental shift eventually. I'm not going to say it's going to happen now or next year, but as AI starts progressing and it's sort of running at light speed, is that you either have to lean into it and figure out how to leverage it, or get swept under the rug by it.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say that's very important in this situation is real estate photographers, but also creatives in general, in every single industry, need to understand firmly that their intellectual property is protected by federal law. Okay. Correct. So you guys need to not be shy about owning your images and learn to discuss these topics. A lot of people I see post in Facebook groups are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm seeing my images being misused," and they're very angry. And that's why when you approach a real estate agent to have this conversation, it gets out of hand very, very, very quickly. Because you sound angry, you come up with the wrong tone. And trust me, I know that I don't have the best tone lots of times myself when I'm talking about subjects. But being self-aware, recognizing you need to come with a heart of education and a heart of a teacher, and also practice something that is rehearsed and very neutral so that you don't, if at any point, not just for this topic, but for any topic, if you're with a customer and you cause them to engage their fight or flight, you have lost whatever topic you're trying to negotiate with them on.
Yeah, so you got to take the emotion. You got to take the emotion out of it a lot of times. I have to tell my assistant that all the time. I'm like, hey, you got to take the emotion out of it. This is a client. They're doing business. We're doing business. We got to take the emotion out. There's only a few times where I'm like, no, I'm going to punch this person in the throat right now. And I let them have, like, I just had this happen yesterday. You know, we had a client, the way he would talk to me was one way, and he would ask me things one way. And then via text, he's talking to her, and it's just completely disrespectful. And he was being just absolutely pompous and ridiculous. And I just basically texted him, and I was like, hey, this right here, this is a good way to make an enemy with me very quickly. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to delete all the images. Don't worry about paying for them. Find another company. And I deleted it. I downloaded the images. I deleted them from Mario, and I blocked him on my phone. So even if he could respond, I'm not going to engage any further than just letting him know, because sometimes there are some clients, some agents that are just not worth the trouble. And when I gauge how much business he's done with me, and you're doing like 1 or 2 properties a year, no, I have to cut it off right then and there. But I'm also making the statement that you're not going to push me around, and you're not going to talk to my employees like that. And we're not the ones for that. And sometimes that's a statement, because like my buddy Matt texted me, he's like, yo, he called, and he's like, he was flabbergasted. He didn't know what to say. He's like, he was trying to mend that for him, because he's like, he's got nobody. Well, I'm like, no, that's done. He can find somebody else. That's it. We're not going to put up with that crap.
So let me ask you a question here, because a lot of people assume that certain consequences will happen if you treat someone like that. For example, they may screenshot your text and then share it to a bunch of other real estate agents.
Go for it. Because you can't be afraid of that. You can't be afraid of that.
Exactly.
You cannot be afraid of that. You cannot let one client dictate that. And if he's screenshotting that, he's also screenshotting his derogatory nature to the person that escalated that. So I'm not afraid of that, because the people that do work with me, they know I don't pull punches. I'm a straight shooter. There's black, there's white, there's really no in between. They just know what they get for face value. And if I'm doing that, that is 100% justified in that regard. Most people, they're just like, they're good. They're good with that. I don't ever worry about one person trying to cancel my business. You cannot live like that. That's a problem that's happened too much now in the culture of today, is people try to cancel people. I've learned to lean into it. And honestly, any publicity is good publicity. I mean, I swear to God, my brother must live by that. He lives by that.
He makes a lot of controversial posts. That's for sure.
He's a controversial individual, but he embraces that, and that's just like, people know when they're dealing with him, hey, this is what we are getting. So you just can't let one person dictate that, because if you let one person walk all over you, other people will do that. So you have to draw the line of, hey, these are my principles. This is what I'm going to stand on. I'm either going to fall on the sword or let people walk all over me. And I'd rather fall on the sword every time.
And what I wanted to say earlier about this was, I only bring this up not because I think that, if you do that, you're going to lose business.
Yeah.
In fact, I knew what his answer was going to be, just because he's experienced. Every time I have made the decision to stand up for myself or for my employees because a real estate agent is out of line, it has gone well for me every single time, and I'm glad I did it. And it has never lost me business, and in many cases got me more. So let's talk, close this section off here. When you were growing your business, one thing I really like to ask every single person I have on is, what was the way you found the most clients? Was it offering free shoots, word of mouth, of course, is always there, Instagram, phone calls, asking for referrals, emails? What was your secret recipe? How did you get
Instagram.
business? Instagram.
Flat out. Instagram has been the greatest thing for my business. Once I started posting video, like started doing reels and transitioned to that social media. I mean, you want to talk about some of the most insane double-digit increases year over year after we really started taking Instagram serious. But once we started doing reels and really honing in on social media content, it was explosive to the point where we created a wait list for people that wanted to work with us because it was just that insane.
And what is your Instagram so people can follow?
So
and see?
my professional Instagram is Apex Imaging Media.
Okay.
And then my other side is Original Dobo. So if you find one, you'll find the other.
Okay, cool. And do you play Apex Legends, or is that just a coincidence?
No, it's just, really poor choice on my part because I didn't realize how popular Apex was. It's funny, when we were starting out, my buddy's name was Atomos.
Yeah.
And then I went with Apex. So we both had A's in the name, and it was, it was a thing. Just not really a great thought, but I've stuck with it. I thought about rebranding, but I was like, I'm just going to leave it. It's fine.
Okay. So this is a perfect transition here. And in regards to what is the best way to get clients, one of the things I have found out is people seem to get a lot of clients with whatever medium they're good at.
Yeah.
So you seem to be a master at video and Instagram Reels, so you're going to do super well there and get a lot of business. Other people who are great people in person are going to do great meeting people at meetings. And but anyway, so that's good. Let's move on then to video. Today we're seeing a lot of trends come up on the market, and I have seen certain trends just kind of take over the industry.
Yeah.
Which is cool. That's a good opportunity. Some people, though, I'm noticing, are very hesitant or reluctant to learn certain new trends because they're like, I don't want to just look like everybody else. This is what you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
But can you speak to, hey, what's the right balance of seeing what's popular and implementing it, and maybe even copying it, versus doing what you want? That whole topic.
You have to look at your market, and that's the thing with these trends. You can't just take a trend, copy and paste it, and put it somewhere else, right? Sometimes that doesn't work. You have to look at the demographic, the clientele that you're working with, the market that you are in, and say, okay, I like bits and pieces of these trends, and you have to almost borrow the best components of each trend to make something of your own. And essentially it formulates almost a new style. When all of this started coming down and Danny released his course, because that's where it came from. It came from, a lot of what we see here today is from Australia, which they've always had really sort of edgy and punchy marketing. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, none of it was really existing here. And then all of a sudden it started trickling out. And then it became something entirely else. Another sort of fad with the 3D text and all this craziness and overly edited videos started happening. I've always tried to just borrow the best components to make it a little bit more mild, but also keep the mission purpose at hand, which is we're here to sell a home. Like, let me get you the most amount of information that I can without trying to cram all this crazy editing. Because it got to a point where I'm watching videos. I mean, how many times can you say, if Miami and Tampa had a house, this would be it? I mean, we hear the same thing because everybody's just recycling the same verbiage thinking it's unique. And then what happened, all of a sudden we went from everybody, like one or two people having really unique and dynamic videos, to then everybody having cheap Temu versions of it, because now these overseas editors got a hold of it and they figured it out, but they really didn't figure out the emotion behind the video. They never really figured out the storyline behind the video. So now you have videos that are just filled with the facts all over the place. And it just became a hot mess really quick. So what I try to do with my video is just borrow bits and components. I'm not really big on the Dutch angles and like the 3D spins and the super I like videos that are moderate paced, not crazy fast. Like I'm good with speed ramps, but not speed ramps that make no sense. If you're going to do a ramp, it has to be taking you somewhere or doing it in order to keep the flow of the video. And then if an agent's on camera, I don't need all this fluff and nonsense that really, like, you're just trying to sound edgy and cool. I want you to tell me about the house, but tell me about the house in an articulate way that is relevant and proportionate to the house that you're selling. If you're doing a $500,000 or $600,000 house, you can't make it sound like, you know, you're doing the Great Gatsby bull crap, because that doesn't work. Like, that doesn't work. You have to know who you're selling to. You have to do this for your client. You have to figure out the price point. You have to figure out the median. So when you're delivering this content, it makes sense in proportion to the homes that we're filming and we're doing. And I think that's where my content it looks different, because we're not trying to be like anybody else, even though you can't reinvent the wheel so many different ways. We're just doing what is right for that demographic. And I'm all about analytics, and that's the first thing we look at. And we're also not chasing trends or trying to be viral, because wouldn't you know it, like, yeah, you can sell a lot of homes on Instagram, and Instagram does sell homes, but some people that are buying sub-$1 million homes, they just want the information so they can make a good decision, and they're not going to buy a video based on hype. I think once you class out over that $2 million, yeah, there's some FOMO buyers that are going to buy, like, find something on Instagram and just be like, oh my God, I gotta have it because I'm afraid to let anybody else have it. So there's different buyers, and you have to qualify your client for those videos and know who you're filming for. So that's what I do really well. We have conversations. I know what projects, I know what I'm going into before we start filming.
Yeah. And another thing I would say is listings aren't dead. Most people who are looking for a home, while Instagram is great, they're still using listings, whether it be Zillow, MLS, anything else.
Yeah, they're probably hitting Zillow first. Yeah, like most of my clients say they saw this on Zillow. I've had maybe a handful of clients say, hey, we sold a house off of Instagram. Truthfully. This is really more agent branding, and I think that's what's missed in the group. I see it all the time. Like, what does this do for the house? Does nothing for the house. This is for the agent to brand themselves. So when somebody's thinking about listing or selling, what I think people fail to understand in this industry is that SEO is different than what it was 5 years ago, where there was websites and web. Now, social SEO is a thing. You're creating searchable rankings within social media where, hey, Facebook wasn't a search engine maybe 5 years ago. Now it's like number 2. It's the number 2 search engine in the world in comparison to Google. So when somebody's looking for an agent, guess where they go? They go there, they ask their friends for recommendations. They may even search for agents, which come up. So when you're creating this content, you're now becoming at the tip of somebody's tongue, because you're creating that relevancy and you're creating that visibility that they just didn't have before.
Yeah. And one thing I will say to this is, there's a lot of branding that's done for real estate agents that is done horrifically.
Horrific.
So just because, and I just made a post about this on my personal Facebook group, a few days ago, and it got a lot of attention. And it was funny how many agents, when they were seeing me in person, were commenting and like, man, I agree with you so much. Yeah. But I opened it up with advertiser business, not your mental illness. And I usually don't make too much controversial posts, but maybe that sounds like a Joseph Dono post. And I immediately got 2 agents that were really pissed off because
they feel personally attacked, right?
They make the embarrassing, cringy, horrific, my eyes just got cancer and I didn't ask for it, reels. And they do it every time. And they're thinking this isn't affecting their brand poorly. It's like hiring someone to detail your car and they pull out steel wool. Like, it isn't going to go well. Like, that's your paint.
And the problem is agents will try to copy and paste what they see from somebody else. I get so there was this whole trend where they throw a box and it never really hits somebody. And I'm like, okay, it's been done. Like, why are we doing this? Like, I try to explain to my clients that we need to be setting the trends and not following the trends. So like, if the trend is this, don't do this. Like, yes, you can lean into some trends, but tell me your wildest idea that you haven't seen. Let's meet in the middle. Let's collaborate. Cause it can't be just all us coming up with these ideas. Like, cause I get burnt out just trying to sit here and figure out and think ideas all the time. So I always tell clients like, hey, have a vision board, think about your ideas. Let's vet them out. Let's come through. I have clients that I have a retainer with, and for a while, we were doing such wild ideas, like things that I've never seen anywhere. And we were just, just playing them out. And it was cool. Granted, they never really went viral, but they were great, wonderfully thought out ideas, just like really good storyboards. And nobody's really doing that. Everybody just finds it easiest to just copy and paste. And I don't know.
And,
it just
or
doesn't
they
feel
do have original ideas and they're awful. Let me ask you a question here, because you do a lot more reels than I do. I try to encourage real estate agents to do a little bit more cinematic stuff.
Sure.
But one of the issues I have when doing things for agents that are very heavy on Instagram is they're very hard to manage. They have very bad, unrealistic expectations. They have a terrible idea. So essentially it comes down to they want to take all Saturday to do a horrific idea, and they want to pay very little money to do it.
Yeah.
So how would you manage your clients who come to you like that? Is it a matter of making sure they're sitting in the passenger seat and you're sitting in the driver's seat?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be the driver, right? Let's base it down. Like, why are they coming to you? And this is the conversation I have. And I fired a client over this, and then they ended up coming back, and then it's like Groundhog Day. They have one good video, and then they come at me with for instance, here's a prime example. And I'm getting ready to film this video tomorrow with this client. I fired this client once over a really poor idea that they had on a home that you just couldn't execute the example that they provided. And we tried to execute their idea the best we possibly could, and it still wasn't good enough. And they were like, well, that was really half-assed. I said, no, it wasn't. This was executed to the best possible standards. And I fired them right on the spot. I didn't even take their money. I was like, I don't want your money. Just go away. And then they came back because they bounced through like tons of videographers. Nobody could execute their vision or even come close. Even our worst was still like what the best that some of these other people were doing. And so they sent me this reel, which was just super, super cringy from a lady in Miami. I think her name is like something Goldie or whatever, Gold something, Diana Gold or whatever. It was just horrible. And she's like, this reel is fire. And I flat out, my response where I said, if you think this reel is fire, you need to calibrate your expectations. I said, and I flat out, my response was like, that is shit. And I said, we're not doing shit. We're not doing shit. I said, I won't let you do that. And furthermore, I won't let you even associate me with that. We're going to rethink this. We're going to go back into the think tank and really think about what you're going to do. We're going to walk the property, and we're going to identify what your idea is, because we can't just go in and start just filming all willy-nilly. I said, we have to have a vision. We have to have an idea. We have to film with purpose. So let's walk the property and let's have a discovery walk, I called it, so we can figure it out. And that's what we did. And now we'll go into tomorrow and we have a plan, and she likes the plan and she understands. I said, here's the deal. Look at what this is. And then I even showed her, I said, the video you sent me, I said, look at all these fake comments. Look at all the, like, the analytics don't match. I said, you see how many replays? Because I go to Social Blade. I call agents out on this. I go to Social Blade. I look. I said, okay, here's the issue I have with this. There is 500 views and there's like 100,000 replays. And she goes, yeah, so? I said, you don't get 100,000 replays off of 500 views. She goes, what do you mean? I said, they bought the views, and because they're using a view farm, it just keeps replaying the video on the same however many phones that they're logged into. That's why the replays outweigh the views. I said, so it's not that this was a great idea or well executed, because it was neither. I said, it's just you got it in your feed because Instagram is believing that this is something people want to see.
Yeah.
So I had to calibrate their expectations.
And just so you guys know, it's not just real estate agents that pay for views and interaction.
No, it's not. It's so many people.
Yeah, but you can look at different sponsored ads of people within our own industry, whether it be YouTubers or educators or some of the AI software.
Yep.
And I'm not naming out anyone in particular. I know that some people get personally offended when I do this, but I promise I'm not naming anybody in person. But one of the great ways, besides using Social Blade or other things, is just look at the likes. If there's a lot of likes or reactions from people who are overseas, whether they be from Vietnam,
underscores are another are another great way. Like bot farms love to use underscores or just really like a lot of numbers and stuff, because that's how they identify these accounts. And it's super easy to filter through this stuff and identify. I see this all the time because I've been around this since 2012 on YouTube, and before people were even like engagement farming and building bots, like it's an empty feeling. And I try to tell clients like that. I'm like, it's an empty feeling knowing that you have a fake following like that. That's like, and I say this to a client too. I said, that's like me going to a strip club, getting a lap dance, going into the champagne room and coming out feeling good about myself. That doesn't feel good because I just paid for that entire experience. And they're like, and the guys get it. They're like, oh yeah, you're right. Like that doesn't feel good. It's fake. It's a fake experience. And that euphoric feeling of that is quickly depleted because you realize it was built on a fake foundation. Yeah. That's why I tell clients, I said, you don't need to go viral. Do not chase viral. Despite I feel like that's like the thing with real estate videographers now. They think they're just so goddamn important. You're not. We're not. We're replaceable, very replaceable. And there's actually becoming more and more of us, but we're very replaceable. But they just have this je ne sais quoi about themselves, like this sort of egotistical vibe, like we're needed. Like agents will make it no matter what. Houses will continue to sell whether they market themselves or not, maybe somewhat more effectively than others, but we're replaceable. And it's just so fun. I could drop names. I won't, but I could.
I wouldn't say we're replaceable, but I would say that there's a right and wrong way to do things. And so many people fall into the rut of trying to be in a giant dick measuring contest of
it's really what it's become.
Who can publish the best edits in the real estate videography Facebook group or something, when frankly, this doesn't do any service to the agent.
It's super disposable too.
Yeah, nobody learned anything about the house because I don't even know where we are in the house. And it becomes so much more. So here's the question you ask. Was I thinking about the house when I watched this video, or was I thinking about how good the edit was when I watched this video?
And it's a hard line. It's a hard line to draw because I find myself in that quandary myself. And what's the mission statement behind what we're doing? And it's easy to have it like, because you get prideful because again, at the end of the day, it could be artistically thought of from our end. But the reality is a lot of these videos that we do can be forgotten in a matter of moments, right? Like the house sells, whatever the case may be, it's gone. End of the day, social media is disposable media. It is disposable media. And you should do your best effort, but I agree with Danny Bertolo, who came up with this style. And the reason why he came up with the style was to provide a template that gave you a good edit, a good baseline to get media that is a cut above the rest, essentially, but with effort that doesn't exceed the time needed to market a home. Does that make sense? Like, it's got to, you know what I mean? It's like proportionate to like, you got great media, it's great, but it's not like this overly edited type of thing that's just that nobody's going to notice. Like, because a lot of times really nobody notices like the little tweaks that we do. They just don't notice it.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I stopped submitting a lot of my photos and videos, like, hey, I just shot this house. What do you guys think? Frankly, you shouldn't care.
I don't, and you'll notice I don't post a lot in there. I post very infrequently. And everybody always asks, like, how come I don't, or how come I put it on YouTube and I don't put it in the group? And I'm like, because, like, It is. It's a dick measuring contest. And I really just don't care about the feedback, because at the end of the day, for me, the only thing that matters is my invoice paid and is my account in the black. That's all I care about. That's all I care about.
The ultimate judge is the client.
That's it.
That's the only person that matters.
That's the number one thing. And that's what a lot of people forget in that group is like why somebody does X and Y is because of the client. If the client loves it and they're truly in love with it, then that's all that matters. That's really, truly all that matters.
Yeah. And there's a certain stage where you are looking for honest feedback and significant, helpful feedback, and you can get it from the groups. But after you reach a certain threshold, it's almost useless to post.
I think we're in that threshold now with everything that's happened, or in order to get it, like I'm also noticing like, you know, there's now clicks, right? There's clicks in this industry. I am like, this is like high school for me again. It's like, holy crap, here, how did we get here? How did this industry get this? Or it's a pay to play. If you want to gain information or you want to be a part of a certain click, you got to pay $910. I don't know. It's just wild to me that I've just never seen that. But
specific number there.
It is a very specific number, but that side of things is fleeting. It's funny. I have a course on Pilot Institute, and they got super mad at me because I made a video like earlier this year, and I just told people, I said, stop buying courses, stop participating in this circle jerk, because there's so much free, wonderful information that's out there. Granted, a course can put all that information in a uniquely centered place, but most of the courses that I've seen are just poorly done. At least when I built my course, I built it with people that actually do schools, and we orchestrated it in a manner in which, like, I was like, okay, this is soup to nuts. I've never seen people do soup to nuts things. I feel like a lot of what I've seen have been rushed, poorly done. They're just like, they miss a lot of the things that really build a business, that build that foundation. I feel like that's why I tell people stop buying courses, because they miss the things that really, like, the struggles that go on behind the scenes that people need to know. And if you don't say it, nobody will ever know. And then when they get to that struggle, now they're asking questions and waiting for feedback. And it's like, nobody does that. It's sort of sad.
Yeah. And one problem I also see is if you do build a course that's very, very thorough, a lot of people don't even want to spend the time to watch it.
You know, it is. And that's the TikTok real world. Like, everybody expects things to happen in 30-second segments. And I'm like, that just doesn't exist. I've even noticed that with YouTube. Long form content struggles so much. I work very closely with DJI, and for the first time in forever, they're like, hey, we really just want you to focus on YouTube Shorts for this product. Like, we really want YouTube Shorts for this product. So I'm like, okay. I mean, it's not really my genre, and I didn't think that content does well, but watching the transition from, 10-minute long videos to minute-long videos, 30-second long videos do so much better is just really wild. But that's what we've conditioned ourselves. That's what the world is conditioned itself for. Is like, hey, we can only handle media in 30 seconds at a clip. That's sort of wild.
Yeah. It's weird. It's strange when I see some of my short form pop off and get, 12,000 views.
It's crazy.
And it's also strange when I see a long form thing that was like 30 minutes or 40 minutes actually do well.
I get excited when long form does well. I still feel like there's a place for it. YouTube is the place for it. And I get clients all the time like, hey, I want to do YouTube. And I'm like, no, you don't. Well, why not? Well, because YouTube's very niche. Like, you got to have a cone. Like, you're in real estate. Why are they going to watch you? And they're like, well, I'm like, no, that's not it. What are you showing them? What are you showing? Are you going to show? And I always tell people, I always lean into the financial side for people. I'm like, how are you going to show somebody with no credit how to buy a house? That will do well. If you lean into the financial side on YouTube and real estate, that does better than trying to sell people or show home tours 100% every single time.
And quick question. We're approaching an hour here. I would love to ask you at least one question. I'm not sure how much time you have available. We ended up going 2 hours with Joseph. We don't necessarily need to do that, but hey, that's one of those examples where we got a lot of response and comment from that podcast, even though it was our longest one. I would love to go into detail with you We touched on this earlier, and we're talking. We're going all over the place a little bit, which is fine. But we never nailed down exactly how to nail down a real estate agent to build a quality reel. For example, you were talking about doing a walkthrough. You had a specific name for planning the video. Here's my conundrum. Okay, as experienced professionals, and this is going to be a subject that everybody wants to hear about who's ever worked with a real estate agent doing video, is how can we get the real estate agent to, number one, show up somewhat well prepared, willing to do a good idea and pay the proper amount of money for it. Because I run into this all the time. I have a few great clients and we make some great content. I just, one of them, 16,000 organic views and all sorts of things that do great. But I have so many real estate agents as well who, as an experienced professional of over 10 years, I make all sorts of content on my own. It gets good results. I know exactly how to do it. But holy shit, I cannot get these real estate agents to just shut up and follow my lead.
So analytics is going to be your best friend. A lot of times what I'll do is I will either take a client's analytics that I'm working with. I have a lot of clients that are on a retainer where I'm managing their socials for them because they just don't know what to do. They don't have time. They're not responding to people. And I keep them sort of on the straight and narrow path. So I will constantly be looking at analytics for that. I have a client. They were terrible on camera. They lacked confidence. They didn't want to do all that. So when I started transitioning to doing reels, they reached back out and they said, hey, we want to start doing this. I said, okay, well, we got to change your body language. I had to work with them to make them comfortable on camera, first off, to make them feel like what they were doing was articulate and clean, and show them like what we're doing is different than what you're doing on your own. We are scripting this for you. We are making you sound intelligent. We're making you look good. And then also showing them about the difference between the focal lengths and why this happens. And then also going back over, well, what's the happy medium for a video? Like, how much is my investment and time into that? And, the problem is, like, when you look around the country, just as a whole, for instance, people's pricing wildly varies. And it's hard to nail down a price that is the correct price for doing a reel, right? Because it depends on how much time, effort, and what it's worth to you as the creator. So there's not a one size fits all when it comes to pricing. Anywhere, if I feel for social media reels, because these are super disposable, anywhere from $500 to, let's say, $1,200 is a good range that becomes worth it for a 30 to 45 second video. It just is.
Okay.
I mean, people that are paying $5,000-$6,000 for a reel, I don't know. I question that.
That doesn't happen.
That's not.
All.
I mean, there are very far and few between that are doing that. I will tell you that on average, my reels are about $650.
And I will say, it seems like a lot of these people are doing $1,000, $1,500 reels for $200, $300.
Sure. I agree. I find the sweet spot of, hey, if you want X and Y, I have tiers to my reels. The more effects, the more transitions, the more trendy, the more this, that price goes up. Also, it increases my delivery window because I'm going to sit there, I'm going to edit this, I'm going to put this all together. So that price will go up. The average agent is spending about $650 per reel with me. And these are pretty decent, they're good reels with good amount. Like, they're definitely different than what others are doing. But the big focus is we have to show them the analytics behind this. We have to show them the visibility, the shares, the etc. And then also preach the consistency. Like, hey, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this once, but you got to be consistent with it. And I show them test cases from like other clients that I work with where we're super consistent creating not only listing content, but also social media reels and showing them that growth pattern. And a lot of times they're like, holy crap, that does seem to work. So the consistency aspect is something that I preach to my clients, and I feel like it works with them. It transitions them. Cheap clients will always be cheap clients. And I always ask a client, are you a GOAT client or are you a cut client? Are you just somebody that's going to just try to follow what somebody else is doing, or you want to be different? Do you really want to be different, or are you just somebody that wants to live close to close? And they'll look at me like, what did you just say to me? I said, yeah. Do you want to live just close to close? Or are you doing this because you're building a brand? Because you're building a brand essentially on social media. So is that what you're doing? Or are you looking just to post because this is a mission objective for this video? And they'll sit there and they'll ponder that statement. And they're like, no, I want to build a brand. I said, okay, well, this is what it costs for good marketing. And then I convey to them, if this does what it should do, which is net you another seller or another buyer, this video will pay for itself. This video will pay for itself. This marketing will pay for itself. I can pay for myself with 2 or 3 good videos. And I try to convey that to them in a manner that is edgy enough, but direct. You got to be direct a lot of times.
And
agents,
confidence.
Yeah, you got to have that confidence in talking. And obviously, there's a way to deliver it, but being direct with a client sometimes shocks them because they feel like they're up here. I knock them down all the time, and I'm like, hey, outside of this Tri-County area, nobody knows who the fuck you are. Like, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows who you are outside of this area. And they're like, huh?
And knocking them down a notch or two is incredibly important. I have had...
You got to.
I refuse to work with some people, and I have one specific person in mind here, but it was just one of these real estate agents that had no idea what she was doing.
Sure.
She was way out of line. It's just one of those nightmare situations where I speak with her. I have 5 minutes on the phone with her, and I say, hey, listen, I really don't... She wanted to do this enormous production for a multi-million-dollar property, and she had never worked with me or anybody else before. So I said, hey, listen, I really need to come to your office and show you exactly how this is created. We need to work together to make a script to make sure it goes well, because we had a limited time on site. So we're not going to be able to show up on site and get the result that you're wanting. We're going to have to do some pre-production and make sure we're on the same page here. Anyway, of course, she refused to do that. I would almost always then say, okay, if you don't do this, then I'm not doing it, right? But for some reason, I agreed to do it, and this was a few years ago. And this is the last time I ever did this. But we show up on site. She had not listened to anything I said on the phone. She had agreed to a highly produced 2-minute video. I had talked her down from 7 minutes.
Okay.
She was completely out of her mind. And she shows up with a script that is about 11 pages long. I kid you not. And I sat there and I just put down my equipment and I said, hey, so you wanted to do a 2-minute video, is that correct? She said, yes. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to pull out my stopwatch and I want you to start reading your script. She's like, what? Yeah, you want to do a 2-minute video and you have 11 pages there. So let's just see how I can possibly fit that script into 2 minutes. And so you have a way of knocking them down, but she didn't have to start reading the script before she knew.
Yeah, she realized. Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of times they come with these bold ideas, and it's just like you have to remind people why they hired you, right? Why did somebody hire them? That's why I asked you. I was like, how come for sale by owners don't sell a house on their own? And that's usually the question that stumps them. Well, because I do blah blah blah. I said, okay, why are you not doing your media on your own? I'll ask them that. And they're like, well, because I said, okay, that's why you're hiring me. So this is what I'm telling you is the best approach to get you the result that you're after. Sometimes it's not always what they want to hear, but for the vast majority with clients, as soon as they get comfortable and they understand the style, I always do a discovery call before I even work with a new client. Like here's the thing I've learned with this industry, separation, right? I put separators in between me and the client. The best thing I could have ever did is hire an assistant to mitigate all the pre-work beforehand. They will never talk to me when they're booking an appointment. It'll always go through my assistant. If they want to do video, there's a deposit that has to be paid. I have to know they have to have skin in their game. If they cancel, that's non-refundable. You want to book, there's $100 minimum deposit, because I felt like that was a fair way to quantify somebody that wants to work with us. You have to make a minimum deposit to work with us. Now, once you're established and I'm like, I know who you are and we've done a couple of projects, fine. You don't have to do that. That's just a formality that I do to qualify somebody. But after that point, it's there. But I put this bracket, this barrier essentially to where I can't say yes, I can't say no to somebody. It goes through my assistant. She's looking at the schedule. This is where we can plug you in. This is what we can do when we can do it. So now there's not like, they never talk to me until we're going on site or unless we do our discovery call pre-plan. I'll do the pre-plan work before we go. But putting a barrier between you and your client is the best thing you can do. You should not, as an operator and owner of your business, I believe in, there's personal touches, but it's the same reason why you'll never reach the Walmart CEO or the Amazon CEO. There's barriers in place for reasons. And there's a pecking chain essentially, and having an assistant and having that booking process does help. And that also eliminates those pricing concerns straight out of the gate, because I'm like, hey, she's already going through the price, and she's like, and we have a very broad process where we'll say our real prices start at, and they'll ask us like, well, what does that mean? Well, if you get on site and you're asking for this, and this, and you're wanting to throw the kitchen sink at it, well, that price is going to go up then. We just try not to pigeonhole ourselves into a committed price a lot of times. That's been the biggest thing that we've done the past year that's really helped us out, is not pigeonholing ourselves or promising a price. And I mean, it's definitely changed the expectation with our clients. And now it's just been, like I said, we do about 60 to 70 reels a month, which is sort of nuts. But I mean, it's just wild. It's just wild to do. And we don't get very many no's.
And just so we can understand your market a little better, what would you say is the average pricing, and what's a comparable city in population that people
So I'm
recognize?
in Tampa. My median home price here is, I would say, 400,000 to, and this is a broad perspective, to 1.2 million that I'm filming. So that's a pretty good range.
Similar to mine. A little bit more expensive, but similar to mine.
A comparable city, I would say, would be Raleigh, North Carolina. Atlanta, Georgia is a comparable city, I would say, albeit they have some crazy estates there.
And they're pretty big. Atlanta's pretty big.
Savannah's another pretty comparable city. Mobile, Alabama is another comparable city in terms of that. And again, it's going to depend market to market, obviously. But I mean, Florida's gotten very expensive. Tampa's an emerging market. Like, I talk to friends in Miami and they're like, we're dying. There's so much on the market. It's a different world down there. You're talking about homes that basically start at $1 million plus. And it's for the ultra luxurious. And, everybody wants to be a luxury agent down there, and nobody's really selling that residential in the outlying areas. So it's a different market. Here in Tampa, I mean, luxury can start at, $600,000, which is sort of cool. And it gives us a little bit more wiggle room. And then we also have the St. Pete area. So Tampa encompasses St. Pete in this sort of like tribe perspective. So you can, you get a wide array of you get a good sampling of homes, I would say. And
if you wouldn't mind, also, you gave a lot of great advice on Reels. In case they didn't catch it before, what is your Instagram one more time? Apex?
Yeah, Apex Imaging Media is my Instagram. Or if you can't find that, just search Original Dobo, and there's a link in there that'll take you right to there.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about that myself, especially the Original Dobo. Sounds interesting. All right. So I think that's all we can do for now, man. Frankly, we could do this again very soon, because there's lots of things we didn't cover that I think you could. If you guys have any questions,
likewise, I'd love to have you on our live stream. We do ours. We do something similar to this. It's done live, but it's a very similar format. Love to bring professionals on, have conversations. I mean, my channel is becoming more real estate oriented, even though it's still a bit broad for filmmaking, but we do similar conversations time to time with industry professionals. So
yeah, I would love to talk about that, and also talk about a little bit of my experience outside of real estate, purely because when I was in college, I was hanging a lot with the film majors, and I was thinking about switching. Never did. I ended up just dropping out and starting my own business, which is how I got into real estate photography eventually. But man, I'm not sure I could contribute too much to the film world in general, but rather just looking at real estate as, hey, man, it's really interesting how many film people I come across that aren't making it, but also refuse.
That was my fear and why I leaned into this. And now that I'm here we're now transitioning more to social media management and content creation for socials beyond just real estate, because I'm looking at the perspective of, hey, if anything ever happens to any of these markets, I want to know that we've never pigeonholed ourselves into one genre or another. And that's also why I never put real estate in my name. I've always been, media oriented. Like, and there's pros and cons to that when you're naming your company, right? Like for SEO sake, like having real estate in your name could be a good thing, but it also could be a bad thing if the market ever turns and you have to lean into something else. Now you have something dedicated into your name that you didn't want there. And the same reason why I never did it on YouTube.
And I think that's a very smart move, frankly, because while the work may not be consistent, you can use real estate to give you a consistent income. Sure. But if we do, and I spoke with one of my previous students about this because he was incredibly talented. In fact, we did a podcast on an earlier episode with him, Ryan, and he exploded in real estate photography, but then figured out he could do the exact same thing outside of real estate and make 10 times more.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us, I think eventually, like some of us will transition to wedding. And I mean, I don't want to give up weekends. I don't think I could ever do that. I've done one. And my brother and I filmed one wedding and we were just like, never again will we ever do that. It just
weddings are not the opportunity I'm speaking of. I'm talking about working with big corporations or small businesses that have real marketing budgets, and
that's what we're working with now.
They appreciate your work and are willing to say, "What? Yeah, $10,000 retainer, no problem."
We have about 5 to 6 clients that we keep that have nothing to do with real estate that we have on a retainer for monthly, which is nice because you start off the month like net positive, which is great, and it also gives you some nice working capital to like be able to not stress about anything. So those are good things to do, and then building out a team that manage those things has been a game changer, and I would recommend that to anybody. I know a lot of people go back and forth on retainers. I'm a big fan of them. If they're done correctly with good expectations and like signed contracts, they're like some of the best that you can do for a business, for sure.
Yeah, and that is real business, guys. Putting together a deal, getting them to sign on the line which is dotted, and then fulfilling the contract and getting paid for it.
Yeah, you got to have a plan. It takes careful planning. Like we went into today, I met with a client that has, again, nothing to do with real estate, sort of on the cusp of real estate, but not really. And it's outside of my normal comfort zone. But what we do is we research their company, we figure out their deficiencies, figure out what we can implement to immediately show them the impact on being visible. And like today, he was just like, send me over the proposal so we can sign. So we gave him a quote, sent him over the proposal. And like 3 hours later, he's like, send us over the DocuSign so we can get this signed. And we want to get this rolling immediately. So it's cool to see that process. And it's a good feeling knowing like, hey, we just added another one. And eventually my goal is I'll just work with retainer clients, and my other employees, they'll work with, one-offs or people that are booking a la carte. And I'm just going to work with just the contract clients, because that's where my focus will be. And that's a really good feeling seeing that, because like that's how the scaling starts happening, is when you have that consistent guarantee from somebody. And it's a different thing than a real estate agent, because it doesn't have anything to do with the house. These are companies that are selling a bill of goods. And honestly, there's a lot you can apply from real estate to that. So that's what I've been doing. That's my focus, is just trying to scale that way, take it a different vertical, essentially.
All right, well, thanks, man. It's been a great podcast. We've covered a lot. And if you guys want to follow him, Apex Imaging Media, is that correct?
Yeah, Apex Imaging Media.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to check out any software for scheduling, realestatemediahero.com is a great place to go. And then, of course, you can check out either his or my course. Mine's on realestatephotographymasterclass.com. Yours was on...
you can check me out on pilotinstitute.com. We're going to be updating the course here again, just to make it more current. But
that sounds good, man. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And we will see you next week on Real Estate Photography Unlocked.